It is day 2 of the Sean Diddy Combs federal trial. Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, she is one of Combs' many accusers, testifying as a central witness.
Is she ready?
Very ready and confident. Thank you.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she...
They once called him a music mogul, a kingmaker, the ultimate hip-hop success story. But yesterday, all of that began to unravel. As Cassie Ventura took the stand, the carefully polished image of Sean Diddy Combs shattered in real time. Courtroom reporters, hardened by years of legal drama, were left stunned as Cassie calmly laid out disturbing allegations from their past relationship. Diddy, known for always controlling the narrative, couldn't control his reactions this time. His face went pale, his body language changed, and for the first time, the man who built a billion-dollar brand had no power over what was being said.
Walked in there, Rachel. She had on a brown dress, form-fitting, visibly pregnant, head held high, and did not make any eye contact with the defendant, with Sean Combs. She said that Sean Combs directed everything from what she had on to the lighting in the room to how she was supposed to interact with the person that she was having sex with. And again, just to reiterate what is a freak-off, the freak-off essentially was something that Cassie said she learned about through Sean Combs about a year into their relationship. He described it as voyeurism, wanting to watch her have sex with someone else. And she said that she did it because she was 22, 21. She was young. She didn't know any better, and that she wanted to please Sean Combs.
Among other things, the singer is expected to address the 2016 video of Combs attacking her in a hotel when she was his girlfriend. Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorneys argue the video is evidence of jealousy, not sex trafficking. And now for the first time, jurors are hearing what Cassie has to say about that and other aspects of their 10-year...
For decades, Diddy strutted through the music industry like he owned it, because he practically did. He built Bad Boy Records from the ground up, launched superstar careers, and expanded his brand into fashion, vodka, and television. On paper, he was a blueprint for success. He graced magazine covers, gave TED Talk-level interviews, and seemed to master the art of reinvention. But if the allegations now coming out in court are true, then that entire persona was nothing more than a mask, one that covered something much darker. While fans and journalists praised his genius, Cassie Ventura was allegedly living a very different reality. The contrast between Diddy's public image and Cassie's testimony was jarring. He arrived at court looking every bit the mogul, tailored suit, surrounded by elite lawyers, flashing confident smiles. But that mask slipped fast. Within 30 minutes of Cassie's testimony, his demeanor changed. The confidence drained. The calm collapsed. Witnesses described Diddy as visibly shaken, tugging at his tie, fidgeting with his cufflinks, even scribbling. Frantic notes to his lawyers. One courtroom reporter called it, watching a man lose control of his own story. Another said Diddy looked physically ill. As Cassie's words cut deeper, he began closing his eyes, as if trying to block it all out. And this was just the beginning, because the real bombshells were still coming.
At some point in time, she actually had said that she looked forward to the freak-offs. Why did Cassie express looking forward to these said freak-offs?
When the prosecution asked her, was there ever a time that you enjoyed the freak-offs? This is when Cassie got choked up and she said, I did, but only because I got to spend one-on-one time with Combs, and I really did love him.
And that is speaking to the psychological abuse, in addition to the physical abuse that she potentially experienced.
Yeah. She's definitely laying out someone who was young, who was influenced by wanting to have this record career. She signed a 10-album deal with Bad Boy Entertainment, led by Sean Combs, and basically describes being enamored by Sean Combs, loving him, not knowing about certain things sexually, and him sort of telling her, teaching her about that. And what you hear is someone that was young and she even said, you know, I was young, I was naive, I didn't know any better. But she's really telling the story of someone who thought she was going to be with someone in this music industry that was going to help her career, that cared about her, but quickly learned after the freak-offs that wasn't the case. And what I thought was also interesting is she said that after that first freak-off, she said she felt dirty. She didn't want to do it. And when she brought up the idea of having a conversation about the freak-offs in an email, which the jurors saw, she said she backpedaled in the email because Combs responded by saying, "I know, you don't want to do it." And she said, "Oh, no, well, it's not that." But that was the beginning. That was in 2010, where she brings up in an email that she wanted to have a conversation about this. And in her words, she didn't want to do it, but she felt like she had to do it.
Well, Diane, prosecutors have wasted no time getting right into the alleged abuse that Cassie Ventura says she endured for years. Ventura telling jurors, quote, "He would bash my head, knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head when I was down." She also got into the nature of those so-called freak-offs, saying that they involved hiring an escort and they performed under the direction of Combs, saying that they happened so frequently it eventually became a job for her to set them up. Ventura said she did not feel she had much of a choice but to participate, that she feared that Combs would retaliate or potentially blackmail her if she did not. And she's had at times to she's taken deep breaths, pausing her testimony, Combs appearing to be listening pretty passively with his hands in his lap at the defense.
When Cassie finally took the stand, you could hear a pin drop. Everyone knew this moment was going to be heavy, but no one was prepared for what she had to say. After years of silence, Cassie finally told her story. And she didn't start with the dramatic. It began small, subtle, chillingly normal. She recounted meeting Diddy at just 19 years old, a young model chasing dreams. He was already a powerful multi-millionaire force in music. The power imbalance was immediate. According to her, Diddy knew it and used it. The control started with little things, needing to know her every move, showing up unannounced, questioning her friendships. Then came the career manipulation. She testified that he would threaten to shelve her music, sabotage collaborations if she didn't comply, and gradually isolate her from everyone. The most shocking moment? Cassie claimed Diddy installed tracking software on her phone. He allegedly always knew where she was, sometimes calling within minutes of her arriving at a location. Friends began disappearing. Her world, she said, shrank to just him. The judge had to call the court to order 3 times during this part of her testimony, because Diddy couldn't stay composed. He whispered loudly to his lawyers, shook his head, made visible expressions the jury couldn't ignore. For a man known for poise, this was a public unraveling. Then came the shift that changed everything. Cassie pulled out her phone, and the courtroom froze. On screen, the jury saw texts and emails, messages allegedly from Diddy, apologizing for violent outbursts, threatening her career, contradicting the statements his team had made for years. These weren't rumors. These were receipts. But even those messages were just the beginning. Cassie then testified to instances of physical violence. She described being thrown against walls, pushed downstairs at a rental home in Miami, and, most horrifying, choked until she almost lost consciousness. Multiple times. She said he only stopped when her body went limp. Jurors were visibly affected. A woman on the panel wiped away tears. One male juror reportedly couldn't look Diddy in the eye. Even veteran reporters admitted they were unprepared for the raw detail in Cassie's story. And still, this was just the build-up. Because what came next, the alleged hotel incident, would send shockwaves through the entire music industry and threaten to destroy the legacy Diddy spent a lifetime building.
Cassie's relationship with Diddy. Some of those details we've seen in prior lawsuits, but to hear her on the stand actually giving those details, reliving those moments herself. Also, you have to remember, she's very pregnant right now. So I'm going to be curious to see how long she makes it on the stand, how she's emotionally able to weather all of these questions. And what's going to be interesting to watch is, you know, the defense from the very start in their opening statement said that she chose to be there. So I'm going to be curious to see how she responds to questions about, was this her choice, or did she feel like she had to do all of these things?
I think what made Cassie emotional is having to describe the details of the freak off and why she did it. When she talked about wanting to do it to please Sean Combs, that's when she broke down. Up until that point, she had just been answering the questions. She's a little soft-spoken at times, but that's emotional. When she had to answer the question about if she enjoyed it, that's when she broke down, because she said, I enjoyed being with Sean Combs. And she says, I did it because it made him happy.
What does the expressions of the jurors look like?
The jurors are laser focused on what Cassie has to say. And that's to be expected, right? Because she is the person who will likely be on the stand, according to attorneys, for 2, maybe 3 days. She's the one that was in the relationship with Sean Combs for over 10 years. So she's got a lot to say, and she's just getting started.
Just how important is Cassie's testimony to the prosecution?
I think it really connects the dots, Rachel. When you look at that initial indictment and what's being alleged, she really is the person that has probably the most information about this idea that the prosecution says, which is creating a criminal enterprise for Sean Combs' sexual desires. Something else that the jurors saw today that sort of connects it back to this alleged criminal enterprise are 7 photos of people that were very close to Sean Combs, one even his former chief of staff. And these were all people that Cassie Ventura was able to name and explain the functions in terms of what they did: security, driver, chief of staff, someone that handled financials. So it's showing that she knew some of these people, again, because she was with him, around him for so long.
Or I thought I was going to die that night, Cassie said quietly. Her voice was low, but everyone in the courtroom leaned forward, hanging on every word. What she described next was something no one had heard before. Not the media, not the fans, not even the gossip blogs. This Four Seasons hotel incident had stayed completely under wraps until now. Cassie said she kept it to herself out of fear. Fear for her career, fear for her life, and fear that nobody would believe her over someone as famous and powerful as Diddy. But now, in front of a jury, she was done hiding. Cassie told the court it all started at a music industry after-party. Everything seemed normal, until it wasn't. She said Diddy got furious after seeing her chatting with another music executive. His friendly smile disappeared. He allegedly grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises and whispered threats in her ear, all while still putting on a polite face for everyone around them. What stunned people most was what she said happened next. According to Cassie, Diddy pulled her through the hotel lobby toward the elevators. She said she cried and tried to get away, making enough of a scene that hotel security came over. But the moment they recognized Diddy, they backed off. He just asked if everything was okay, and when Mr. Combs said yes, the guard walked away. Cassie told the court, "He didn't even ask if I was okay." Then came the pictures. Her lawyer showed photos Cassie had taken the next morning. Visible bruises on her arms, a busted lip, and redness around her neck. They weren't fancy or professionally taken, just raw images snapped in a bathroom mirror. And somehow, that made them even more powerful. Diddy's legal team quickly tried to block the images from being shown. They said the photos couldn't be verified, that they weren't turned in earlier, and that they shouldn't be allowed. But the judge disagreed and let the jury see them. Their reactions said it all. One woman covered her mouth in shock, 2 men looked away, and one juror in the back row wrote notes with a visibly trembling hand. This hotel incident was the moment nobody expected. There had been no previous mention of it in any documents or statements. Diddy's lawyers had nothing prepared. When Cassie testified that he'd thrown a champagne bottle at her head, missing by inches, and wrecked the hotel room in a rage, smashing a lamp, flipping a table, punching a hole in the bathroom door. The courtroom fell silent. Most alarming of all, she said he kept her trapped in the room for over 48 hours, took her phone, and told her she'd regret it if she tried to get help. As this part of the story wrapped up, every eye turned to Diddy. His reaction would go on, to define this entire trial, and maybe even the future of his career.
Defense is going to say is that this wasn't blackmail. This was not coercion. This was consensual. We know that Cassie started out with Sean Combs as an early person with someone who is trying to get her career started, and he was going to help her. That's what the defense is going to say, that she was starting out and wanted someone to support her. They did their first record deal together. That's something I think the defense is going to focus on, and had it not been for Sean Combs, she wouldn't be where she is right now. The prosecution obviously is saying he was in control. It may have started out as a consensual. It may have started out with her being excited about seeing him, but ultimately he took control of that relationship. He took control of her career. This is their key witness, and she's on that stand trying to explain all of the charges that the prosecution wants to hit home with that jury.
No, there was a moment early on when Cassie mentioned Dallas Austin, who she called a friend who's a producer. So I don't know if that's someone that we're going to hear from. We know that there were pictures shown to prospective jurors that are well-known celebrities, you know, Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Lauren London. We don't know, though, how they fit yet into why they were even asked, do you know these people? Are you familiar with them?
So the prosecution is questioning Cassie right now, still questioning her.
The defense hasn't even got a chance to, I mean, that might change based on the timing, but, you know, because she's such a key witness, it's likely that she will be on that stand the rest of the day. We learned that Cassie referred to him as Pop Pop, and Sean Combs would refer to her as CC. The prosecution says, what does CC stand for? She said Cassie Combs.
What kind of witness is Cassie coming off as to the jurors?
I think naturally when you look at her visually, people see that she's pregnant and looking like she's due any day now. So they might, you know, have empathy, sympathy for her in that way, but we don't really know. We know that they've been instructed to be fair and impartial. As to what type of witness she's coming off as, she's describing someone that she was, someone she said that was trying to figure out who she was at that time and who she was allowed to be. Now you're looking at somebody that's almost 40 years old, totally different person, but even in describing what was going on at her at that time, taking drugs, trying to please Sean Combs, she's really just sort of laying out the case for her not having a lot of control. So I think that's the takeaway. This is someone who is making it very clear that at that particular time in her life, she says she did not have any control really over what she wore, what she did, who she was having sex with. She's a different person now. But I think when she talks about those details and even reflecting on them for herself, as we saw today, she broke.
What happened next shocked everyone. Diddy, the man known for always keeping his cool, completely unraveled in front of the entire courtroom. The polished, powerful music mogul image shattered, just like that. Remember, this is a man who spent decades carefully building his brand. He was the smooth operator, the smart businessman who never lost his temper in public. But as Cassie kept talking, that image began to fall apart. Veteran reporters said they'd never seen anything like it. Diddy went from being the confident industry icon who walked in that morning to someone who looked shaken and defeated. As the hours passed and Cassie shared more details, he seemed to shrink into his chair. Behind him, his legal team was visibly panicked. One person sitting nearby told reporters that Diddy's main attorney kept putting a hand on his arm to calm him down. At one point, a lawyer passed him a note that said, "Stay calm," in all capital letters. It didn't work. When Cassie brought up an incident that happened at Diddy's house in the Hamptons, he slammed his hand on the table so hard it echoed across the room. The judge stopped everything right then and there. "Mr. Combs, if you can't control yourself, I will have you removed from this courtroom," the judge warned. From that point on, Diddy could barely hold it together. Every time Cassie said something damaging, he shook his head and mouthed, "That's not true." It was like he forgot the jury was watching every move he made. One courtroom observer put it simply. It looked like a man who had always been in control suddenly realizing he couldn't control this. For years, Diddy allegedly ran every part of Cassie's life. Now, she was finally in control, and there was nothing he could do about it. The real turning point came when Cassie told the court that Diddy had threatened her family if she ever spoke out. And then she dropped the bombshell. She had recordings. Audio recordings. Her lawyer played them in court. That's when Diddy exploded. He stood up and shouted at her, "You know that's not how it happened." His lawyers rushed to hold him back and tried to push him back into his seat. It took 3 of them to keep him from interrupting the court. The judge immediately called for a recess, but the damage was already done. The jury, the reporters, everyone had seen it. The man who built his career on being untouchable had just shown the world how vulnerable he really was. As security escorted him out of the courtroom, he looked like a different person. The confident mogul was gone. And then came the evidence nobody saw coming. Cassie had been collecting proof quietly over the years. Messages, emails, photos. She saved them in multiple places, out of Diddy's reach. She even had texts from other celebrities who had witnessed things firsthand. This wasn't hearsay. These were real messages. The courtroom went still as Cassie told the judge about texts from big-name celebrities, close friends of Diddy, who had seen things happen at parties and events. When Cassie mentioned these names, Diddy looked sick. His team quickly objected, saying the texts weren't allowed. But the judge reviewed them privately and ruled that they were important to the case. One by one, messages from famous artists appeared on the screens in court. A popular rapper messaged, "Cassie after a Grammy after-party. You okay? What I saw tonight wasn't right. You can crash at my place if you need to." A pop star wrote, "I've known him for 15 years. I've never seen him act like that before. This isn't normal. Please. Call me." The most damaging message came from a longtime producer who had worked with Diddy for years. After witnessing something in the studio, he texted Cassie, "I can't be around this anymore. I told him to get help. Call me when you're safe." These texts blew apart Diddy's public claims that nobody had ever seen anything. The court saw that other